go ahead and call this regular city council meeting to order, 1800 hours, February 10th, 2022. First item on the agenda is roll call. We have everyone here with the exception of Councilman Kester, who should be here shortly, I'm hoping. It did not indicate that he wouldn't be here. Next order of business would be the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. Francie, since you're back, would you lead us in the pledge?
Tag.
Yes. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Pastor Hollingsworth?
Let us pray. Almighty God, we pray that you guide us always as we continue to build on the future of Holbrook and all our citizens. We desire to satisfy the needs that need to be met during this meeting as we honor you with our commitment to excellence. Strengthen us as we build on our faith and trust in only you to make tough decisions. I pray that we will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose water never fails. I pray that we will be fruitful. Father, please guide us so that this meeting can be productive. Let us be effective and decisive. In the name of your sweet Son, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
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 Okay, moving on to item 4, the consent agenda. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as is.
A second.
Have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments or concerns on it?
I'm going to recuse myself from voting since I was not in attendance.
No other comments or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. One abstinence. Okay, call to the public for non-agenda items.
There is one.
Darlene Brinkerhoff, I'd like to have her just kind of step up and talk to us about the Petroglyph Park.
It won't take me long. Just first of all, I'd like to say it's a sad thing that we've lost our #1 fan to the Holbrook Golf Course Park. But as to look to the future, I think it's important that the city tries to maintain and protecting the site and locking it off, and I would be glad to help with tours and we see how that goes. Maybe we can figure out the logistics to it. And that would be great if the, because I've said all along, it would be great if the city could gain some funds from that. Because most Petroglyph parks, they do charge something. So. And that's about it, unless you have any questions.
Darlene, thank you. Appreciate you stepping up.
Yes.
Moving on to item 6, call to the public for agenda items.
There are none.
We have none. Moving on to new business. Discussion and possible action. First one up will be Scott Graff, the annual financial audit.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, it's a pleasure to be here for your council meeting tonight, present the audited financial statements. My name is Scott Graff. I'm a partner with Colby and Powell CPAs. We're a CPA firm in Gilbert. We do mostly municipal audits as our specialty. Although we do all kinds of other work, we also do nonprofits, we do tax returns. Right now it's kind of starting to get busy with that, but at the same time, this is kind of our bread and butter. This is what we do the most. But we've We're here to present the audit report. Just hopefully everybody's had a copy of the audit before. Good reading material. Put it by your nightstand right before bed.
Okay.
You'll have no problem sleeping at night. And no, it's good stuff. But we're going to go over it a little bit. We're going to kind of present this. Obviously, you've had me do the audit, so that's important that I present results of audit. And then secondary, I'll also talk a little bit about financial statements, a little bit kind of like, you know, how's the general fund look? How do our utility funds look? I've actually put a 5-year comparison together. We'll go over just a few numbers. Comparisons are always great because it gives you more of a picture, like where were we 5 years ago compared to now, right? That's sometimes a little bit easier to look at. But first of all, what we want to do is just talk a little bit about audit. One of the very first things when you open up this audited financial
Okay,
statement.
can you kind of?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, let's
Wow.
get it where you can see it.
Sorry. I don't see how anybody could have seen that. How's that?
Okay, we're gonna talk about a couple things, but before we get to this, when you open up your audit report, you know, there's a table of contents in there. The very first thing you're gonna see is the independent auditor's report, because that's really gonna provide the results of the audit. But in that auditor's report on page 1, it describes, first of all, what the report is and what the period is. And you'll see that this is a June 30, 2021 report. So when we audited the financials, it goes through June 30, 2021. So we're not going through December or today, you know, so there may be things that if you want to talk about that may not be inclusive within the period. Then it talks a little bit in the second paragraph talks about what management's responsibility is for their financial statements. And so the management is responsible basically to prepare financial statements, put together a chart of accounts, code things to the correct places, get your accounts payables in there, your receivables in there, and make sure it all reconciles on what's good, right? And then also to make sure that all those things happen properly, their responsibility is to design what we call internal controls, like policies and procedures, to make sure that those steps of getting a financial statement put together that's good and reliable, that those steps are done properly. And it also will protect the city against, you know, mistakes. You know, if you have good policies and procedures, it limits mistakes. It also limits fraud. Fraud is the responsibility of city management. It's not the auditor's job to catch the fraud all the time. You know, fraud is the responsibility of city management. And it's important because you want to make sure your financial statements, all this that's behind this report, that it's presentable. And so that's responsibility management. The next paragraph says, what's the responsibility of the auditor? Well, we're basically giving an opinion. Is what you said correct? And we're required to plan and perform an audit to obtain what we call reasonable assurance. In our profession, that means high-level assurance. That your financial statements are free from material misstatements, whether caused by like just errors, making mistakes, or whether they're caused by fraud. So material, the word material in audit terms means big enough that somebody really would be concerned about it. You know, are paper clips missing? Maybe a paper clip went out the door with an employee. Is that a material fraud? No. Would you want to talk about that all day long? No. Material frauds would be something that you would be interested in and care about. We have to make those assessments as auditors of what that would be. However, immaterial frauds, if they come to our attention, then we disclose those to the appropriate level of management. If it were, an employee-related level, then it would go to the city manager. If it were city manager related level, it would go directly to the city council. So appropriate level would be the reporting of that. The good news is we found no material fraud or immaterial fraud with the city of Holbrook, so that's always a relief. Yes, sir.
Scott, thank you, and if I don't ask the question now, I'll forget it.
Okay,
What's your definition of immaterial fraud?
immaterial fraud is
Paper clips.
like,
No, that'd be material.
so when we assess materiality, materiality is assessed for both fraud or misstatement. Any misstatement caused by an error or caused by a fraud has a material amount to it. If it's a fraud, you know, we have an actual assessment that's based on a number, but it's not just qualitative, it's quantitative, it's both, okay? So, we would report any fraud would be immaterial. It would be reported to management, anything. So basically my level of materiality for fraud to be reported would be anything, okay? I know that the paperclip probably wasn't a bad example because, you know, nobody would consider that fraud, right? A paperclip. But anything that we would discover that would be considered fraudulent, we would report that to the appropriate level of management.
I guess my question would be more of the difference between material and immaterial.
Right. Material is a calculation that's different based on the size of the audit. So the bigger the numbers in the audit, the more and larger materiality is. You know, so for example, City of Holbrook has a different materiality number than, you know, City of Phoenix, and State of Arizona would have a different materiality than City of Phoenix. So materiality is different by number based on size. Okay. Good question. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. So, as we have worked through our audit, we have found areas in policy and procedure that need improvement. Okay, we call these findings. The findings are found at the back of your financial statement audit report. There's 3 findings that we reported this year. I think there was 4 last year, so that's an improvement. The first one was related to the purchasing policy. I think just over a period of time, some things started to change in the procedure of the purchasing department, whereas some of the purchase requisitions and purchase orders were not included with, according to policy, the current policy that the city has. Discussed this recently with management. They do agree that that was the case, but improvements have already been made according to you know, procedures and implementation of that. This is important. You know, we talk about procedure and policy a lot. There's a lot of times when we look at a policy and we find out that the policy, for example, of purchasing, that it's not being done like it says in the actual written policy. Well, we're gonna put a finding because policy is created by management and council. And so we need to follow those policies. However, sometimes when we step back and look at the policy, we go, it's kind of outdated, right? This is a little different now. Times are different. We have, how you pay invoices may be different than 20 years ago. So how do we adapt? We gotta look at the written policy, and sometimes it's a matter of just improving the policy so that management can do things and be still able to meet the requirements of it, good internal controls, but also be more to date on how things would work within their office. Any questions on that one? The second finding is misstatements requiring audit adjustments. So when we get the financial trial balance of the data, and it's basically the city says this is ready to be audited, it is very common that it's not perfect. And when we go through and audit accounts and reconcile them, we find that there's needs to be adjusting them to get them to be correct. And so that's pretty typical among, we do 25 cities and towns in Arizona. Not a single one of them can pull it off without an audit adjustment. And there's some very, very good finance directors, they still will miss something and audit adjustment is required. The finding is when we do enough audit adjustments that we feel, okay, the trial balance or the information given to us is substantially different now after we did our audit adjustments because of how many we ended up doing. So to improve, we make these suggestions and these findings that, hey, let's minimize how many of these journal entries or these adjustments we need to make. And one way to do that is to look at what adjustments we are making and before, they're kind of year-end closing adjustments. They're not typical adjustments that you make monthly, but before the auditors come, you make these adjustments before they come. And so pull out last year's adjustments, see what the auditors did. I'm a phone call away if you have a question, and say, how do I get this one so the auditors don't need to do that anymore? And that finding should go away. Hopefully next year we don't have that finding. Any questions on that?
Yeah, question on that. So, do you follow up on this, or do you wait till the next audit for these
Well,
findings?
No, we don't follow up on this until the next audit.
Till the next audit,
This is the follow-up right here,
okay.
okay? So these are ways to improve. Management will be the one to follow up on.
So can you explain how that works? Give two examples. One, let's say payroll, for example, where payroll will fall into another year and that needs to be adjusted. That's one example.
Right, that's a good example. And, we use the words a lot in accounting, accrual basis and cash basis. You run your finances during the year on a cash basis, meaning we book it when we pay it, right? When the cash goes out, it's a cash outflow and it gets recorded. When a cash receipt comes in, we record it. That's the typical way all cities and towns do it. It's simplicity in its finest, and that's how I would do it if I were a finance director. However, at June 30, we have things that would have to be adjusted to more accrual basis. And in these terms, they call it modified accrual. It's governmental accounting only, modified accrual. So basically, like a payroll, when the very last payroll of the year, everybody works the dates. Let's say June 30th, we have a payroll, or after June 30th. So we have that last week of June, but it didn't get paid until July. So the accounting and cash basis would record the expenses for payroll in July. But we got 5 days that were worked in June. And so under the accrual or modified accrual basis, it's going to require us to allocate and move the 5 days of payroll into June. And that's done, by doing a worksheet, creating what was an expense that would have been recorded in June if we had done a payroll on June 30 and booked it as a journal entry. One of these journal entries is related to that, and that would create that. And then on July 1st, you reverse all that entry and you're back on cash basis again. It's for the reporting period. And that's an example of one of those journal entries.
And then Scott, if you could follow up finally, you get together with the finance director, you have a discussion as far as what journal entries weren't made and all, a sheet is put together, and then the finance director goes and makes those corrections. I'm going to Councilmember Wolford's question. It's not like you just walk away, you have a conversation, here's what the problems are, here's what you need to correct, and you know that he's made those corrections.
Right. So all those corrections would go over with the finance director, make sure they understand. Remember, responsibility of the financial statement is city management. So they take full responsibility for those entries, and then they record those entries so that the financial statements are, correct.
And I'd like to add one thing too. We do, and I do most of those entries. It's some of the higher technical ones that take a lot of time of research that have got those audits and or the repeat finding. And a lot of those are the difficulty in public safety retirement. We gotta find those long-term obligations and journal them back. Those are very time-consuming, so a lot of the payroll, accounts payable ones, a lot of the basic ones I usually do, but the number of them at the end to get them total is what gets that finding. And we are getting better at it too, as we go along, so.
I would agree.
Hopefully Scott agrees with that.
I would agree with that.
Scott wasn't even here this last time, and Matt was so excited how many I got done, so come on.
We
Matt
do.
should be here instead of Scott.
Matt's tougher than me. I don't know.
Matt is tougher.
Yeah. Did that answer all the questions on the finding?
Yeah.
Okay. The third finding is, this is a repeat finding as well. It's, when we talked just a minute ago about policies and procedures getting outdated, they're outdated. There's really a need to update these, the formal written accounting policies and procedures, so that it can be following what we're doing. And it's just natural. A lot of times these policies and procedures, they're just, a policy and procedure is done in its initial form, but then it changes every time. I mean, there'll be policies coming to you and you'll be approving them, you know, multiple times during the year, and they get updated and they stay updated. That hasn't been really the case with the old policies and procedures, and so right now you're in the need to kind of re-look at it, you know, scrap some of it that you may not like, put some new policies and procedures that might fit a little better. It's time to revamp the policies. All right, any questions? Okay, let's go into a little bit of financial. Ooh, that's a lot smaller than I thought it was. This, I'm going to tell you, this is your general fund. And I'll point out the page that we're actually going to look at, just part of it. If you go to page 18 in your financial statements, this is just the general fund. And the reason I just picked the general fund is the other funds are really restricted funds. They're, you know, the HERF fund is for streets. Grants funds are for their specific grant purposes. But the general fund is everything else, now besides the utility funds. This doesn't have the utility funds. It gives us a pretty good idea if we look at it over 5 years. I've highlighted a yellow line, and because I'm not going to go through all these lines, I think it's probably too much unless you see something you want to talk about. I highlighted the yellow line. In a business, that'd be like net income, net loss, right? The general fund works on what we call current financial resources method, meaning it's a lot like what you do in your own personal finances. It's current money coming in and current money going out. You know, it doesn't account for depreciation, and you know, it doesn't account for just interest on a car loan. When we look at our own finances, we look at the whole payment on our car, right? That's going out. The whole thing's going out. We worry about the whole payment, not just the principal and interest. Just the interest, right? And so the basis of this is money coming in and money coming out. And money coming in, and it's near term. So things that are going to be collected within 90 days of year end, and current things that we have to pay, those are also included in this. So pointing out the yellow line, it shows you year by year kind of how much income, positive being good, negative being a loss. And sometimes that's just the nature of the general fund. Sometimes it has ebbs and flows, right? Depending on what we're doing in a year. We may put a street project through the general fund if we needed to. That year would have an outflow, right? And it would show a loss. But you'll see that generally over the 5 years, it's produced some pretty good inflows. Some of that is a little bit COVID related. So you can see the inflows are pretty good in the last 2 years. But you can see at the bottom in the green, that's your balance. Fund balance is like, and if you're used to in business, like retained earnings. So
Page 18.
it accumulates over time, and we'll use that green line, the ending fund balance, as a really good indicator of how the general fund is performing.
Scott, I'm sorry, could you give the page reference on that again?
You're looking at page 18.
Because my page 18 doesn't have the.
No, this is a 5-year comparison.
Only the
Page-
left column is on page 18.
Only the general fund on page 18. If you look at the left column,
Okay.
that's the left column, and the other 4 columns are just comparative. That I took last year's and the year before, and I took just that column and I put them all together so we could compare it.
Okay.
So you could, and the only reason we do this is because we could kind of look at how the general fund has improved over the 5 years. If you look back 5 years ago, on June 30, 2017, the general fund, my eyes are bad, 1.6 million is what the general fund balance was. And look at 2017, we had total expenditures of 4.4 million. So about a quarter general fund. So let's say we didn't receive any other revenues for the year. We have 1.6 million to spend. It would last us about a quarter of the year, right? Now look at 2021. We have 3.4 million of fund balance. Our total expenditures are, granted, they're going to be a little high because, you know, a COVID year, we have a little bit more in public safety expense. But even if we had a continual year, let's say equal to 2021, it's $5 million, we can go a little bit longer, right, with 3.4 million of fund balance. So we could use those two numbers and say it's a percentage of the expenses and see how are we in our general fund doing financially. You know, we can cover more expenses with just our general fund in the case that things don't turn out really good in the future. I mean, we want a long future at City of Holbrook, so having a healthy general fund balance is important. But this kind of gives you a 5-year comparison of that. I know this is the first time you've seen this. You probably don't have a lot of questions, but if you do, just raise your hand and we'll talk about it. And I'll come back to it if you want me to. Enterprise funds, those are your utility funds. And if you look on page 21, these utility funds have, this is summarized just in total. So in total for sanitation, sewer, and water, it'll show how much has been charged for those services. It has total expenses for the year, and then in just this year there's a little bit of grant income that came in, which made a little bit improvement. But you can see the yellow line, that's our net income, right? Doesn't quite perform as good as the general fund. In fact, it typically will have a net loss. Enterprise funds, they do record depreciation. A lot of people, they want to know about depreciation because depreciation is not a cash outflow. Depreciation, you know, it's not something you spend for. But at the same time, it's still an expense. We still got to account for it like any business. But you can see that charges for services have not met the total requirement for their expenses each year. This has been pretty typical with a lot of cities and towns. A lot of cities and towns may decide, well, based on, you know, our service that we provide, it may be that the general fund might have to subsidize a little bit of the utility funds. Other cities and towns are like, no, that's not happening. We want them to subsidize their own expenditures. And so this is showing you where you're at for the 5-year comparison. Now the green line, same thing. As the green line shows, kind of like a retained earnings, your net fund position, 2017 was at 5.3 million, 2021 4.6 million. So that shows a little bit of deterioration. I'll be honest, it's been pretty common with a lot of utility funds, but that's where city management and city councils have to be creative. Is the rates the right rates? Have we exhausted our ability to cut expenditures? Is this something that we're not going to charge it through services? Are we going to just use some of the general fund monies to cover the excess? Decisions, right? That is placed on your shoulders.
And Scott, if I can add, just as an example, for example, you note on the sanitation fund on page 21, there's a positive there. You'll also note this year, after this year's budget, a difference in the sewer fund and the water fund. We're heading in the right direction. So for example, as people have retired and we're not replacing them, that'll change those numbers. That's really having a significant impact. We have more staff than we have revenues. And so we analyze that, we take a look at the various departments, and if we can do without somebody, we do without them, and that changes those numbers. Again, sanitation was not in the positive in the past, it now is. And again, the reason for that is a reduction in staff.
Any questions? All right, I just hope that was a little bit helpful. You do have a very good finance department that I'm sure all those questions can be asked of them as well during the year. In addition, I'm also a phone call away if any questions come about. I am grateful for the opportunity to do the audit and look forward to seeing some improved numbers as well next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Okay. Moving on to new business, item B, notice of primary election. Notice is hereby given that the city of Holbrook will hold a primary election as follows. Primary election date Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. Offices to be filled, we have 3 4-term council member seats that will be coming up. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Machuzik Center across the street from City Hall, 404 First Avenue in Holbrook. This election will be held in conjunction with the state and county elections. Okay.
Mayor, when do people have to have their?
I can probably answer that. Do you mind?
Go ahead, Lisa,
Okay.
if you'd give us some.
Yeah, so anytime you can come pick up right now a statement of interest and then fill that out. Once you fill that out, I'll give you a packet. And so you can pick up the packets now, start getting signatures after you've turned in your statement of interest. But the packets can't be turned in until after March the 5th or after. And they have to be turned in before April the 4th.
Give me the dates again.
Between March the 5th and April the 4th.
And then Lisa, if you can mention who are the council members that are up?
Yeah, right now, the council members that'll be up for election are Councilman Wolford, Councilman Kester, and Councilman Marsh.
I don't believe that doesn't need a vote on anything.
No vote. No, it's just an announcement.
It's just notification.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any other comments or questions on this for Lisa?
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa, appreciate it. Having nothing else, then we will move on to item C. Approval of purchase dugout roofs for Hunt Park baseball field. Tim apparently isn't here. Ted, would you like to maybe give us an update on what's going on there?
Yes, so we basically had one dugout roof left. My understanding that one of the other dugout roofs blew off. These are commercially designed dugouts, designed for the wind factors. Safety is really important. So these guys are putting together specifically engineered dugout roofs. And these dugout roofs are purchased at through a cooperative discount price, so we are getting a good price on the roofs. That's requiring a little bit of work over there. You know, they removed the old ones, putting down a nice concrete foundation, making some changes for the fence that goes around the dugouts. But the real good thing here is that we're going to end up with roofs that are they're going to hold up to our winds. They're going to be safer for the people that are using our baseball fields.
Thank you, Ted.
So they have an 80-mile-an-hour rating.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the rating is, but they know we have high winds up there,
Yeah.
and that's they pay attention to that. Yes.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the $47,663.61 to Americana Shawnee for dugout roofs.
Second.
Motion and second. Do we have any comments or questions on this?
So, and this is grant money too?
Yes, this is grant money. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I meant to
Make
mention that.
yes, so
Very
people
good.
know that, yeah.
Yes, very important. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, motion passes. Okay, I guess we'll move on to summary of current events. Guess I get to take the first one. As most of you know, it saddens all of our hearts, the loss of Mike Odell this week. It's kind of rough on all of us. I worked with Mike for 20 some odd years. It was kind of a shock when I came in the other day and Ted told me about it. Just in disbelief. Ted and I did go up to the house and talk to his sister and his dad. Gave him our condolences and, you know, anything that we could do for him as the city, you know, be more than happy to help him out in any way we can. Also, let me see what the date was. I don't know how many of you know Tim McPherson. Tim McPherson passed away last week, I believe it was, and I received a text tonight that his funeral services will be Tuesday the 15th at 2 p.m. just right down the road here at Owens Mortuary Chapel. And then Tim texted us tonight. Who was it?
Dave Blythe.
Dave Blythe.
Yeah.
Barbara Blythe, who was she worked with the CDBG.
Right. And she volunteers at the Bread of Life Mission.
Bread of Life Mission, and her husband unfortunately passed away today.
Yeah.
So sending our condolences out to these people. Kind of been a bad week. So move on to the posse ride. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to go up to the send-off dinner. I was down in the back. I worked 4 days building their frames, and the last day I twisted or pulled something, and I went home, couldn't get out of my chair. So, but everything that I've heard, it went real well. And congratulations to them on a successful ride again this year. So, other than that, I don't have anything else. If we'll move on to Vice Mayor.
Well, I also would like to give my condolences to the Odell family. I think probably everybody in town knew Mike. He loved the city. He was passionate about the Petroglyph Park and the cemetery.
That's right.
And he was just a happy guy. So we will miss him. Tim, a little quieter than Mike, but I served on the police retirement board with him.
Oh.
And he, real good guy. You could always count on him. and he's had quite a bout, so I'm grateful for him that it's over and sad for his family that they're gonna be without him, but, thank both of them for their service. Didn't know Mr. Blythe, but there's just been so much, your heart goes out to everybody who's lost somebody. I've been out of town for a while and I am so grateful to be back. Been trying to do it over the phone and it's just really nice to see all my guys here and I don't know what happened to Earl, but I can find him at the coffee shop. I'll catch him up on things. So anyway, thank you for helping me be able to do this long distance for a little while and again, I'm grateful to be back. Congratulations to the posse on one more year of doing something that you couldn't get me to do once. But it sure looks like great fun, it's just too cold and bumpy. So, that's all I have, Mayor, thank you.
Councilman Dixon.
Yeah, my condolences to the family of Mike Odell. And, you know, he was passionate about the Petroglyph Park and others in the city. And you go out to the Petroglyph Park and he would show you all kinds of things out there. And he really was passionate about it. And he really took that place personally. You know, that was his park. So condolences to them, and Dave and Barb are friends of mine. We go to church together, and you know, as a shock and saddening to hear of his passing just today, and the McPhersons also. And to get off of that, I want to compliment the Hunt Park fencing. Looks really nice. Are there going to be any bleachers at that area too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It looks really good. Thank you. Is that there?
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Marsh.
Yeah, Mike was a friend of mine, and I think we could all learn a lot about petroglyphs from him, and pride of place in Holbrook, and just being kind to one another from Mike. And we need to make sure that we can do right by Mike out there in the petroglyph area, but as well as just how we all go through our daily lives, because Mike was a good inspiration for that. I too was unable to go to the dinner, the posse dinner. I'm glad the event went well and the ride went well. Thanks to the mayor for making the frames. Thanks to Kip for doing dishes. And welcome back, Francie.
Thank you very much.
Nice to have you
May I
back.
say one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank Darlene for stepping forward to try to help fill the void at Petroglyph Park. I can vouch for the fact that she's pretty close to an expert on petroglyphs, and she'll do a fine job for us. So I appreciate that, because I know how many other things you've got on your plate. So thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Nielsen.
Yeah, I can't say enough good about Mike Odell. He was our neighbor, and just a story that nobody knows about. Last year, he was taking out trees, and he knew that we maintained a wood pile for our widows, and he made sure those trees were cut to a length that we could haul them off, and they're now in stacks of firewood. And he knew the trees needed to be taken out, but he wanted to make sure that the very best possible use happened to that. And that's how passionate he was about the earth and other things. Also, the posse, I'd like to commend them for another excellent year. I went to their breakfast the next morning, and there were 50 of them there. And kudos to them for carrying on this tradition, and safety, and bringing interest to our community. Also, I wanted to bring up that this weekend, Friday and Saturday, the Senior Center and the Food Bank's having a thrift sale at the Senior Citizen Center. And those funds will help feed people and take care of our seniors. And so if you're so inclined, that's 8 until noon on Friday and Saturday.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Wolford.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome you back. We missed you, and we understand you suffered a loss too, so,
Thank you.
you know, hearts are with you. Yeah, Mike, I'm gonna miss not seeing him Monday through Friday, looking out my kitchen window, driving off to his next mission. Great guy, a true citizen of this community. I mean, with cemetery, bucket of blood, he's all about the preservation of our history. Him being a native of Holbrook himself, his family and stuff. So, yes, he's truly gonna be missed. And yeah, again, thank you, Darlene, for stepping up. I know you're committed to it now. But yeah, so and the McPherson family. Sorry to hear about that. I know Tim, yeah, a long struggle with this. So hopefully some peace comes from this. Again, I didn't know Mr. Blythe, but being a part of, you know, his wife at the mission up there, you know, so that's a big loss, not only for the community, but for that Bread of Life mission as well, so. And yes, and Pony Express went good turnout. And I wasn't in the kitchen by choice.
And you weren't there by yourself.
Darlene was here with me.
That's what you get for being an Elks member. You can't dodge it.
Well, you know, I forgot that, you know, being on the carriers too. And I did my 6 months of galley duty and washing dishes, pots and pans, and boy howdy, I'm still having nightmares. It came back. But it was fun, it was a good turnout. And unfortunately they did tell me that they were gonna present something. So I got a few opinions about why I wasn't out there to receive something for the city. And I apologize about that, but I was there with good intent, so. But it was a great turnout. And yeah, the poor guys, I know, single digits, I think, when they were writing down that rim. So, kudos to them. So, that's all I got.
Thank you, Councilman. City Manager.
Yes, we will miss Mike. He really had a good heart. All right, Hunt Park East softball field fence is nearly complete, as Councilmember Dixon mentioned. We're working on wrapping up the dugouts, as you just approved them. But I wanted to bring to your attention that I believe staff member Kelly mentioned that there may be a change in the bids because of the increase in metal costs, and that is exactly what happened. The lowest bid actually increased by $10,000. Fortunately, the second lowest bid didn't increase by as much, so we had to go to another bid for a total increase of $6,486. So the total cost for the fence ended up being $49,494. That's how things are going anymore. They're just prices are just increasing. It's really a difficult situation. You asked about bleachers. I had mentioned Barrow Field. And we were putting together projects, and we were able to do a better savings by putting several projects together. So we added Barrow Field bleachers in, so we'll have Hunt Park bleachers, both ball fields there, and then Barrow Field. And so the new bleacher total came in at $30,735 by adding them in. By adding that other set of bleachers in, we were able to save on shipping. The way we had it before with different projects, we had 2 different shipping costs, and so that's the new total there. We are working on installing lighting at Barrow Field. APS is partnering with the city to get those lights installed. It's difficult finding folks to come up here or get material to Holbrook. That adds to cost, so I'm working on getting that situated, and I'll keep you posted as far as how that goes. I attended the Apache and Navajo Counties Mayor and Council Member Association meeting in Phoenix at the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. So every year we have a meeting up there. It gives us opportunity to meet with legislatures and meet them face to face and have opportunity to express our concerns and have them let us know kind of what's going on. I think it's a real good opportunity. And I wanna say that, we're fortunate that we had the league lobbying on behalf of the city. We really are, cities, not just here, but other cities too. I also attended the annual Arizona City County Management Association Winter Conference. It's held in Sedona. It's always a good opportunity to meet with fellow colleagues, find out what they're doing, share different ideas, and I appreciate that opportunity to be able to attend a conference like that. I also attended the NACOG Economic Development Council meeting. As I had mentioned at one of the meetings, I was appointed to the Economic Development Council. I have since, I was appointed initially to fill a vacancy, Paul Watson from the county, who has since retired. I, at the last meeting, was reappointed and appointed for a 3-year term with the Economic Development Council. It's great. It's really a good opportunity to find out what's going on, talk to different people, have contacts up there. I'm really excited that I have opportunity to be on the Economic Development Council, and I think it'll be a definite benefit to the city of Holbrook. We had budgeted for servers at the city hall, server at the police department, and they have been installed here at City Hall. Switch and firewall has been installed at the police department, and soon we'll have a new server over there. All of our equipment was very old, and I'm really happy that we'll be getting everything up to date. With the new equipment comes greater safety, greater security, and so we're moving forward there. We also put a new computer at the, 2 new computers at the wastewater treatment plant, and a new computer over at the transfer station. So we're in pretty good shape right now as far as our computers are concerned around the city. At a previous meeting, I also talked about a grant we were successful in obtaining. That is a group, the Apache County Coalition. City of Holbrook joined Apache County Coalition, number of communities. It's a $600,000 brownfield assessment grant. The money can be used for brownfield site inventory, community outreach, engagement, site assessment, asbestos and/or lead surveys of buildings to support renovation, cleanup, and reuse planning. So this is a very important part, initial step of getting additional grants in the future. The goal is to have at least one grant on one project per community. So one of the things that we need to do is put together a brownfield advisory committee, and they will review some of the projects out there, potential projects, and come up with a recommendation. They serve an advisory position, and they would come up with recommendations. And generally, maybe somebody from the chamber, someone from real estate, someone from a nonprofit would, get together, form a little community, meet at a variety of times, and then come forward and present their advice. So that's something that we'll be working on. And finally, our water, wastewater guys are always busy, and we have old equipment. They are working on a water line leak, that the line that crosses the river. They had placed the order for parts. The parts are now on hand. So part of the city will be out of water on Monday, February 14th, between 7:30 and 11:30. They're going to turn that water off. Here's where it's going to be. The outage will affect First Avenue north to California and West Bucket of Blood. Again, with old pipes and valves and not always knowing where everything is, it could affect other locations. That's, as far as we know right now, those are the locations. But I want to give you a heads up that potentially on Monday between 7:30 and 11:30, you may be out of water. Hopefully that not be the case. It'll just be these individuals here, basically on First Avenue and West Bucket of Blood. Yeah, so it's funny. I was talking to Randy, he's not here right now, but looking at budgeting for next year. I'm starting on some of our capital expenditures, and he smiled. He said, we've gotten a lot done, and we really have. Over these last few years, we've really got our pumps all in place. We've got backup pumps in place at the water plant, at the wastewater plant, and we're really getting caught up, and it's really exciting. It really is. It lends to some more stability in the system. One of the final things that we're working on is we have one final lift station that will be hooked up to our SCADA system. And with that SCADA system, you're able to go on your telephone, you're able to go on a computer and know at all hours what's going on. So that's one of the final lift stations there. And then we've got a pump or two to be replaced, but we've really gotten the community in good shape. The issue, though, again, at the end of the day, is everything's old, and some things happen. Doesn't necessarily mean negligence or the guys haven't done something properly. For example, when there's a sewer clog, it's just like at your house. Doesn't matter the age of your house. Sometimes your toilet gets clogged. Sometimes those types of things happen here, and our guys really hop on it, and they really do a good job. And doesn't matter day or night, hot or cold, they're out there and they really work hard. And we really are very fortunate to have the crew that we have. Randy does a great job with his people. They're really dedicated. They really work very hard. and I'm grateful to have that team working for us. Obviously, we have teams at other departments that are doing a great job too, and I'll keep you posted on some of the projects that are coming up. At the Streets Department, again, they're out there crack sealing right now, trying to get caught up on some of those deferred projects. Once those crack seals are finished, the next step will be slurry seal or chip seal, depending on the condition of the roads. And by doing that, we're able to push, extend the life expectancy of our streets. Beyond all that, we're writing grants, and we've got more grants going on. We've got more work that's going up up at the airport. There's just a whole lot of activity. Finally, let me say this, there's a lot of really exciting potential projects out there. I say potential because really until the contractor comes out there with the hammer and nails, you just never know. But there are projects right now that are should be coming to fruition soon, and I'm really excited about that. Can't mention them again until I'm talking to someone the other day. It's like, so you purchase the property, get your building paperwork done. It's just it's a hopeful project, but there are projects out there. It's really exciting. I'm really excited, and over the next few years, I think you'll be excited to see some of these projects that are going to eventually come to fruition. And Mayor, Council, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
Thanks, Ted.
Okay, moving on to item 9.
Mayor?
Yes.
I got a question real quick. On this water outage and stuff, how are you notifying the residents?
Yeah, the water department will have to get out. Are we going to put door things on the doors? Lisa?
Well, if it's gonna start at 7:30 on Monday, we
Oh,
don't have any
cockroaches, yes.
time to do it.
We're kind of running out of time, aren't we? You know what we'll do? Our weekend duty person, I'll get a hold of him. He needs to get out there and notify people, because you're right, it's already Monday. Thank you for mentioning that. Very good point. I agree with you 100%. Need more than just talking about it at a council meeting. But we'll do that. We have an on-call person. We'll get hold of them and maybe put some door things on. Something. We'll
Just
do
don't
that.
ask them to call me, right?
Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. You're absolutely right. We need to do that. I will do that.
And then one more thing, you're talking about this Brandville grant or committee,
Yes.
So how do you solicit that committee?
We'll notify,
Paper
like the
or-
chamber, we can notify the real estate agents, nothing complicated.
Just put the word out to
Yeah,
them.
we'll get the word out, yeah, so this is my first opportunity to notify council first, right? And then,
Right.
yeah, the next thing I can notify Chamber of Commerce, and then usually what'll happen is there's people that are interested in something like that will step forward, but yes.
Okay, I know I'm talkative, but
It's
one more
okay.
thing. So, I think it's important when we're talking about all this, the work that's being done in the ballparks and stuff, identifying the grant money that's doing this stuff, so the public knows that, that these grants are coming in and we're putting them to work for their
Right, yes, so,
health and stuff.
so that is in the report, it does say that it's grant money funded, I just didn't mention it, I apologize, but you're absolutely right, I agree with you.
Because seeing it on TV and they hear it louder, than reading it, so
Right.
it helps.
Yes, no, and usually you're very good if I missed that. I think at the last meeting, Councilmember March mentioned it is grant money, right? So usually it's in the report, but it's also a good idea to in addition to having it in the report, to reiterate that it's grant funded. Yes, I apologize. Yes, I agree 100% with you. Very good point.
Anything else? Okay. Now, moving on to item 9, submissions of written petitions for items not on the agenda.
There are none.
We have none. Item 10, Chair will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I so move.
Have a motion?
Second.
Motion and second for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Thank you, guys. Francie, welcome back.
Thank you, Bill. And